The arrogant invasion. The Ketheri Empire's fatal mistake. Admiral Corinth Vex stood before the massive viewing screen of his flagship, the Bloodclaw, watching the blue marble of Earth rotate slowly in the void. His scaled hands gripped the command rail as his reptilian eyes gleamed with anticipated victory. The Ketheri Empire had conquered over 300 worlds, and this primitive mudball would be no different. Admiral, Lieutenant Brix approached cautiously, his own scales flickering with nervous energy. The other species in the Galactic Council have issued warnings about this system. Perhaps we should reconsider. Corintha's head snapped toward his subordinate, vertical pupils narrowing to slits. Warnings? From whom? The cowardly Zephyrians? The merchant Valdris? They fear shadows and profit margins. He turned back to Earth, mandibles clicking with amusement. Look at this planet, Brix. No orbital defenses worth mentioning. No energy shields. Their fastest ships barely reach their own moon. What could possibly threaten the might of the Ketheri Empire? Human preparation. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Captain Jolene Rodriguez sat in the nerve center of humanity's most classified facility. Banks of monitors displayed the approaching alien fleet, their sleek vessels moving with predatory grace through the outer solar system. She calmly sipped her coffee, her weathered face betraying no emotion despite the magnitude of what was approaching. Captain Rodriguez, her aide rushed in, tablet in hand. The Ketheri fleet has crossed the asteroid belt. Estimated arrival in 18 hours. Right on schedule, Jolene replied, setting down her cup. Signal Colonel Blackwood. Tell him it's time to activate Protocol Omega. And get me a direct line to the Secretary of Defense. The aide hesitated. Ma'am, shouldn't we attempt communication first? Maybe they're peaceful? Jolene's laugh was cold and bitter. Son, we've been monitoring their communications for the past month. They're dividing up our planet like a birthday cake. The Ketheri don't negotiate. They conquer. The Ketheri fleet advances. Back aboard the Bloodclaw, Admiral Corinth reviewed the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. His fleet of 50 warships represented enough firepower to glass a continent, yet he doubted he'd need even half of them. The humans had no idea what was coming. Sir, Lieutenant Brix reported, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the third planet. Multiple sources, but they're intermittent. Probably their crude nuclear reactors cycling on and off, Corinth dismissed. These primitives still burn fossil fuels for energy. What threat could they possibly pose to us? His confidence was infectious, spreading through the bridge crew like wildfire. The Ketheri had never lost a battle, never faced defeat. Their reputation preceded them across the galaxy, striking fear into the hearts of entire civilizations. These hairless apes wouldn't even slow them down. The first surprise. As the Ketheri fleet entered Earth's outer atmosphere, Admiral Corinth expected to see panic. Instead, he found something far more disturbing: organized resistance. The humans weren't running or hiding. They were waiting. Admiral, Brix's voice cracked with confusion, we're detecting massive energy buildups across the planet's surface. These readings, they're not matching any known human technology. Corintha's triumphant smile began to fade. Impossible. Our intelligence reports show they're barely capable of interplanetary travel. Suddenly, the communications array exploded with activity. A calm, female voice cut through the static, speaking in perfect Ketheri, "Attention alien fleet. This is Captain Jolene Rodriguez of Earth Defense Command. You have violated our territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The bridge fell silent. How did these primitives know their language? How were they communicating on military frequencies? "This is Admiral Corinth Vex of the Ketheri Empire," he snarled into the comm, "surrender your planet immediately, or we will take it by force." The response came without hesitation, "Admiral, you have no idea what you're dealing with. This is your only warning. The trap is set. Colonel Marcus Blackwood stood in the Pentagon's war room, surrounded by screens showing the alien fleet's positions. His silver hair and scarred face spoke of decades of military service, but his eyes held a sharp intelligence that had been preparing for this moment his entire career. "All units report ready, Colonel," his communications officer announced. "Excellent," Blackwood replied, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Ladies and gentlemen, humanity has been expecting this day for 75 years. Since Roswell, since the first crashed scout ship, we've been preparing. These reptilian bastards think they're dealing with primitive apes." He pressed a button on his console, and across the globe, hidden installations began powering up. Decades of reverse-engineered alien technology, improved and weaponized by human ingenuity, came online for the first time. "Let's show them what happens when you underestimate the human race," Blackwood commanded. "All units, this is Operation Homecoming. Light them up." The war for Earth's survival was about to begin, and the Ketheri Empire had no idea they had just made the biggest mistake in their long, bloody history. First contact goes wrong. The landing begins. High General Morzek commanded the first wave of Ketheri ground forces as they descended toward Earth's surface. His massive frame, covered in battle-scarred scales, filled the transport ship's command chair. Through the viewport, he watched the green landscapes of Earth grow larger, anticipating an easy conquest. "General," his aide reported, "we're detecting organized military formations below. The humans appear to be waiting for us." Morzek's laugh rumbled through the ship. "Good. I prefer prey that fights back. Makes the victory more satisfying." He activated the ship's comm system. "All units, prepare for immediate ground assault. Show these primitives the might of the Ketheri Empire." Human Response Team. Commander Felix Nakamura stood at the edge of the landing zone, his team of specialists hidden in the treeline. Unlike the panicked civilians the aliens expected to find, these humans were calm, disciplined, and ready. Felix had spent 15 years studying alien psychology and tactics, preparing for this exact moment. "Commander," his communications officer whispered, "the first transport is touching down. Thermal scans show approximately 200 hostiles." Felix nodded, speaking into his headset. "All teams, remember your training. These reptiles are physically stronger than us, but they're overconfident. Use that against them." He paused, watching the alien ship's doors begin to open. "Dr. Cross, are you ready with the welcome gift?" Dr. Benjamin Cross, crouched behind a nearby boulder with his specialized equipment, gave a thumbs up. "The pheromone dispersal system is active, Commander. They're about to get a very unpleasant surprise." The Ketheri advance. General Morzek stepped onto Earth's soil, breathing deeply. The air was rich with oxygen, perfect for Ketheri physiology. His soldiers spread out behind him, weapons ready, expecting immediate surrender or chaotic resistance. Instead, they found something unexpected: silence. "Where are the humans?" Lieutenant Grix asked, scanning the area with his weapon raised. "Hiding like cowards," Morzek growled. "Search every structure. Drag them out if necessary." But as his troops advanced, strange things began happening. Soldiers started stumbling, their vision blurring. The confident formation began to break apart as warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds suddenly found themselves disoriented and confused. "General," one soldier called out, his voice slurred. "Something's wrong. The air, it's making us sick." The human trap unfolds. Dr. Cross monitored his equipment with satisfaction. "The airborne compounds are working perfectly, Commander. Their respiratory systems are processing the targeted chemicals exactly as predicted." Felix smiled grimly. 75 years of studying their biology from crashed ships finally pays off. He activated his comm, "All units, the enemy is compromised. Begin Phase 2. From hidden positions throughout the landing zone, human soldiers emerged like ghosts. They moved with practiced precision, their movements coordinated through years of training. The Ketheri, still reeling from the chemical attack, found themselves surrounded by an enemy they had completely underestimated. Morzek's shock. General Morzek tried to focus his vision as humans appeared from seemingly nowhere. These weren't the primitive creatures he expected. They moved like professional soldiers, their equipment was sophisticated, and their tactics were flawless. "How is this possible?" he snarled, raising his plasma rifle. "They're supposed to be savages." Commander Nakamura stepped into view, his hands raised but his posture confident. "General Morzek, I presume?" "I'm Commander Felix Nakamura, Earth Defense Corps. We need to talk." "I don't negotiate with prey," Morzek spat, though his words were slightly slurred from the chemical effects. "You should," Felix replied calmly. "Because right now, you're surrounded by 300 of Earth's finest soldiers, your troops are chemically compromised, and your ship's engines have been disabled by our technical teams." The revelation. Dr. Cross approached with his scanner, studying the alien general with scientific fascination. "Remarkable. The physiological responses are exactly as we predicted from the Roswell specimens. General, your people aren't the first aliens to visit Earth. We've been preparing for this day since 1947. Morzek's blood ran cold. "Impossible. We destroyed all scout ships." "You destroyed the ones you knew about," Felix corrected. "But some crashed here decades ago. We've been reverse engineering your technology, studying your biology, and preparing for your inevitable arrival." The general looked around at his disoriented troops, then at the calm, organized humans surrounding them. For the first time in his military career, Morzek felt something he'd never experienced before: fear. The bigger picture. Back on the Bloodclaw, Admiral Corinth watched the tactical displays with growing alarm. The ground assault that should have been a massacre was turning into a disaster. His elite troops were being systematically captured by supposedly primitive humans. "Sir," Lieutenant Brix reported, his voice shaking, "we're receiving distress signals from all landing sites. The humans, they were ready for us." Corintha's claws scraped against the metal console. "Ready? How could they be ready? Our intelligence said they were barely capable of space flight." "Perhaps," Brix suggested quietly, "our intelligence was wrong." As if in response to his words, the ship's communications array crackled to life. Captain Rodriguez's voice filled the bridge. "Admiral, your ground forces are now our prisoners. This is your last chance to withdraw. The choice is yours, but I suggest you choose wisely." The mighty Ketheri Empire was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or strength. It was preparation, patience, and the willingness to wait 75 years for the perfect moment to strike back. The human trap. The Admiral's fury. Admiral Corinth Vex paced the bridge of the Bloodclaw like a caged predator. His most elite ground forces had been captured by primitive humans, and his reputation was crumbling with each passing moment. The bridge crew watched nervously as their commander's rage built to dangerous levels. "Prepare the orbital bombardment cannons," he snarled, his voice echoing through the ship. "If these humans want to play games, we'll turn their cities to glass." Sub-Admiral Crix stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, our troops are still on the surface. An orbital strike would teach these insects a lesson about defying the Ketheri Empire." Corintha's roar silenced the bridge. "Charge the main batteries. Target their largest population centers." Human counter-strategy. In the depths of NORAD, Colonel Marcus Blackwood watched the alien fleet's movements with calculating eyes. His decades of military experience had taught him to read his enemy's intentions, and right now, the Ketheri were about to make another fatal mistake. "Captain Steele," he called to his Special Forces commander, "they're powering up their main guns. Time to show them what real firepower looks like." Captain Lana Steele nodded, her fingers dancing over her tactical console. All lunar installations report ready, Colonel. The satellites are in position, and our orbital platforms are fully charged. General Harrison Ford entered the command center, his weathered face grim with determination. Marcus, the President has authorized use of the Prometheus array. We're cleared for full defensive measures. Blackwood's smile was cold as winter. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to introduce our visitors to some human innovation. The Prometheus array activates. High above Earth, hidden installations that had been disguised as communication satellites suddenly came alive. The Prometheus array, humanity's most closely guarded secret, began to power up. For 30 years, human scientists had been developing weapons based on recovered alien technology, improving on designs that the Ketheri themselves had created. Captain Steele spoke into her headset, "All units, this is Valkyrie Command. The Prometheus array is hot. Targeting solutions locked on all enemy vessels." The array consisted of 50 orbital platforms, each armed with particle beam weapons that could punch through any known shielding. The Ketheri had no idea they were about to face their own technology, perfected and weaponized by human ingenuity. The Ketheri's shock. Sub-Admiral Crix was the first to notice the energy readings. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive power buildups around the planet. These signatures, they're stronger than our own weapons." Corinth dismissed the warning with a wave of his clawed hand. "Impossible. These primitives don't even have proper energy shielding. Fire the main batteries." The Bloodclaw's massive guns unleashed their fury toward Earth's surface. Beams of superheated plasma streaked through space, carrying enough energy to vaporize entire city blocks. But before they could reach their targets, something incredible happened. Brilliant shields of energy erupted around Earth's major cities. The Ketheri bombardment struck the barriers and dispersed harmlessly, like rain hitting an umbrella. The planet's surface remained untouched. Human retaliation. Shields holding at 98%, Captain Steele reported calmly. Counterattack authorized. The Prometheus array responded with devastating precision. 50 beams of coherent energy lanced upward from orbit, each one targeting a different Ketheri vessel. The alien ships, designed to dish out punishment but not expecting to receive it, were caught completely off guard. Admiral Corinth watched in horror as 3 of his destroyers simply vanished, their hulls vaporized by weapons that shouldn't exist. "How are they doing this?" he roared. "Where did they get this technology?" The truth revealed. General Ford activated the fleet-wide communication system, his voice carrying across all Ketheri frequencies. "Admiral, this is General Harrison Ford, Earth Defense Command. The technology you're facing is your own, improved by 75 years of human innovation." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of emergency systems trying to compensate for battle damage. "You see," Ford continued, "your people have been visiting our world for decades. Sometimes they crashed. Sometimes they didn't make it home. We've been very good students, learning from every piece of technology you've left behind." Colonel Blackwood joined the transmission. "Every crashed ship, every piece of alien metal, every fragment of your weapons, we studied it all. Then we made it better. The trap closes." Captain Steele's voice cut through the Ketheri communications. "All enemy vessels, you are surrounded. Our fleet is decloaking, now." Space around the Ketheri armada suddenly filled with human ships. Sleek vessels that looked nothing like the primitive rockets the aliens expected materialized from stealth fields. The humans had built an entire fleet using reverse-engineered alien technology, and they'd been hiding it in plain sight. "Impossible," Sub-Admiral Crix whispered. "Our sensors showed no ships." "Your sensors showed what we wanted them to show," Captain Steele replied. "We've been jamming your detection systems since you entered the solar system. Welcome to the trap." The Ketheri dilemma. Admiral Corinth found himself in an impossible situation. His ground forces were captured, his fleet was outnumbered and outgunned, and the primitive humans had somehow acquired technology that matched or exceeded his own. Worse, they were using it with a tactical brilliance that spoke of careful planning and preparation. "Admiral," Lieutenant Brix reported, his voice shaking, "we're receiving surrender demands from 17 different human vessels. They're demanding our unconditional surrender." Carentha's world was crumbling around him. The Ketheri Empire had never surrendered, never been defeated. But as he looked at the tactical display showing human ships surrounding his fleet like wolves around wounded prey, he realized they might not have a choice. The humans had turned the tables completely. The hunters had become the hunted, and the trap was closing fast. Unleashing human innovation. The science behind the victory. Dr. Benjamin Cross stood in his laboratory beneath the Nevada desert, surrounded by decades of research. Banks of computers processed data from the ongoing battle while holographic displays showed the molecular structure of Ketheri technology. His team of scientists had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment. "Professor Mills," he called to his colleague, "initiate the neural disruption field. Let's show them what human creativity can do with their own biotechnology." Professor Janet Mills nodded, her fingers flying over complex controls. "The field generators are online, Dr. Cross. The Ketheri are about to experience human innovation firsthand." Around the alien fleet, invisible energy fields began to pulse. The technology was based on Ketheri neural interfaces, but humans had weaponized it in ways the aliens never imagined. The fields targeted the specific brainwave patterns of reptilian species, causing disorientation and confusion. The fleet in chaos. Aboard the Bloodclaw, Admiral Carenth suddenly felt his vision blur. His thoughts became sluggish, and simple commands seemed impossible to process. Around him, his crew was experiencing the same effects, stumbling and struggling to maintain their posts. "What's happening to us?" Lieutenant Brix slurred, his scaled hands shaking as he tried to work his console. Prime Commander Zektus, the highest-ranking Ketheri in the fleet, managed to activate his communicator despite the neural interference. "All ships, we're under attack by some kind of mental weapon. How is this possible? Human technological superiority." Captain Lana Steele watched the alien fleet's formation collapse as the neural fields took effect. "All units, the enemy is compromised. Begin Phase 3 of the operation." From hidden positions throughout the solar system, human ships began revealing technologies that defied everything the Ketheri thought they knew about primitive Earth. Vessels that could phase through solid matter, weapons that could manipulate gravity itself, and defensive systems that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Professor Mills spoke into her headset, "The gravitational weapon systems are online. We're ready to demonstrate what happens when human physics meets alien arrogance." The gravity trap. Space around the Ketheri fleet began to distort. The humans had weaponized gravity itself, creating fields that could crush starships or fling them across space like toys. The alien vessels found themselves trapped in gravitational wells that their engines couldn't escape. "Impossible," Prime Commander Zektus gasped, fighting through the neural interference. "This technology, it's beyond even our understanding." Dr. Cross's voice echoed through the alien communication systems, "Commander, you're experiencing human innovation at its finest. We took your crashed ships, studied your technology, and improved it beyond your wildest dreams." The Ketheri fleet watched in horror as human vessels demonstrated impossible maneuvers, phasing through asteroids and appearing inside their defensive formations. The primitives they had come to conquer were using technology that made their own ships look like ancient relics. The final demonstration. General Harrison Ford activated the fleet-wide communication system from Earth's command center. "Attention Ketheri fleet. What you're witnessing is the result of 75 years of human determination. Every crashed ship, every piece of alien technology, every fragment of your empire's knowledge, we've learned from it all. Colonel Blackwood joined the transmission, but we didn't just copy your technology. We improved it. Human creativity and innovation took your designs and made them better, faster, more efficient. As if to demonstrate his point, a single human ship began to transform. Its hull shifted and reconfigured, weapon systems emerging from hidden compartments. In seconds, it had become something that looked more like a mechanical predator than a starship. Adaptive hull technology, Professor Mills explained to the stunned aliens. Based on your own shape-shifting materials, but enhanced with human engineering. Our ships can become whatever they need to be. The Kethary's realization. Admiral Corinth struggled to process what he was seeing. His empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, faced dozens of different species, but nothing had prepared him for this. The humans weren't just using alien technology, they were surpassing it. How? He whispered, his voice barely audible through the neural interference. Captain Steele's response was calm and confident, because we're human, Admiral. We don't just adapt to new situations, we excel at them. Your species conquers through force. We conquer through innovation. The technological showcase. Around the trapped Kethary fleet, human ships began displaying capabilities that seemed impossible. Vessels that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that could rewrite matter at the molecular level, and defensive systems that could turn enemy attacks into fuel for their own weapons. Dr. Cross continued his explanation. Your technology was impressive, but it was designed by conquerors. Our improvements were designed by scientists, engineers, and dreamers. We saw your weapons and asked what if we could make them better. We saw your ships and asked what if we could make them faster. The aliens watched in stunned silence as human innovation surpassed everything they thought they knew about technology and warfare. The final warning. Professor Mills's voice cut through the chaos. Kethary Empire, you came here expecting to find primitive creatures. Instead, you found the one species in the galaxy that turns every challenge into an opportunity for improvement. General Ford's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Your fleet is trapped, your technology is obsolete, and your invasion has failed. But we're not monsters like your empire. We're offering you one chance to surrender with honor. The Kethary fleet hung motionless in space, trapped by their own technology turned against them. The primitives they had come to conquer had become their technological superiors, and there was no escape from the trap they had walked into. Human innovation had triumphed over alien arrogance, and the galaxy was about to learn a new lesson about underestimating the species from the small blue planet.